Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed the recorded session. Next up, we have a very interesting panel, which will be moderated by my colleague Linda, who is a clinical psychologist, and we'll be exploring what if 4-day work week will solve the need for a self-care day. So, Linda, I'd like to hand it over to you to start the panel.
Thank you so much, Anna. Very excited to be here. Very excited to be talking to both of these interesting panelists today. I'm not going to make a big introduction from my end, but I'd love to hear a little bit of background from you and maybe about your company as well. First off, we have Myles from APAC Mambu.
Hey, thanks, Linda. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Mambu is a cloud native core banking platform. So we do a lot of work in the financial services space, supporting both new and digital entrants, and really, looking to support how banks want to evolve and really drive. I think one of our key philosophies is around driving financial literacy and driving financial inclusion. But great to be here today.
Thank you so much. And then our other speaker today is going to be Joseph from Care Corner.
Good afternoon, Linda, and everybody viewing in. My name is Joseph. I'm from Care Corner. Care Corner has been around in Singapore for 40 years. We are IPC charity. We deal with children, youth, families, and as well as seniors. Increasingly, mental health is a very big area of concern and investment for us as we want to bring care to the community. So we are happy to be serving 20,000 beneficiaries every year and answering the distress call of 13,000 calls a year in the last 1 year. So look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. So we'll start. We'll dive right in. We'll start with a personal question to both of you. I'd like to hear from you whether you take self-care days, and if so, what you do on those self-care and mental health days. Go for it, whoever wants to.
I mean, I'll go first. I think I've been a big believer in self-care days for a long time and right through my career. I think it's incredibly important. Even when I started out in business and being a sole contributor, but now being a regional leader and supporting a team of over 90 people, I think it's still incredibly important that even someone like myself, I take that time out and I refer to it what I call dance floor and balcony time. And down on the dance floor is when I'm down, dealing in the trenches with my team, working really, really hard. But I think balcony time is really, really important, both to reflect and self-reflect, but allow you to get your head out of it. I think everyone gets so caught up in their day-to-day that it becomes continually monotonous. And I think that's where self-care days and taking that step away from what you're doing and being in that grind really is important, because it almost gives you a bit of a mini reset. So I do like to take them. And I try to take them not just on Saturdays and Sundays. I actually try and take them during the week as well, and sometimes break up the week. And it may not need to be a full self-care day. Sometimes it only needs to be a couple of hours where I really step out of my day-to-day job and really do that reflection. So for me, I believe it's incredibly important.
Thank you so much. A really interesting analogy. What did you say? Dance floor and balcony?
Yeah.
Very interesting way.
On the dance floor or balcony time. Then you can just see what's going
on. How about you, Joseph?
Oh, I don't dance. For me, I realized that if I don't take time out for myself, say before COVID, I think it's about once a month, you start to find yourself getting hungry or angry or frustrated. So like what Myles said, I'll take time out to do some reading, watching movies, something that I like to do, and swimming and taking long walks just by myself, by the beach or anywhere, handphone out of sight, and really just taking in the environment and just being in the moment. I thought that is really very helpful, especially in times like this, even as we are having this conversation. Well, my kids are coming back soon, so I'm just trying to make sure that they stay out of the way and not get into the session.
I think we can all relate to that. And if they do pop in, have them come in. Maybe they have a good answer to any of my questions. We'll see. Okay, cool. So the topic today is self-care as well as the 4-day work week. And I think the 4-day work week has especially lately become a bit of a buzz topic, so to say. I'd like to hear from you, Myles, first. If I understand correctly, at Mambu, you have an ongoing 4-day work week initiative. I'd like to hear how you came to that decision, what exactly that looks like, all of that.
So I think we do, it's correct. And actually we've had it in place for a number of years, like well over 5-6 years. So Mambu is relatively young. We're still only an 11-year-old company, but once we really started to build out our business and sort of get to that sort of, 120, 130 people, we believe 4-day work week drove a couple of really key things for us as a business. One, it's very attractive from an employment perspective. Like actually, we believe giving people that flexibility to really look to that has been a key driver in actually attracting talent and retaining talent in our business. But bringing it back from, I think it really drives great behavior and mental health, because what we're actually finding is our people are just productive over 4 days as they are necessarily over 5 days, and they're not working necessarily harder as well. So we've always had a real hybrid work from home and a real flexi style and approach, but actually formally putting in place for a period, and we only do it for 3 months of the year. So it's not something that goes on all year, but for that 3 months of the year, typically aligned with summer, we've found that it's really, really given our culture a key differentiator in the market, that we really allow our people to have those, 12 additional flexi days. They can use them as they choose. So, and we find it's not always a Friday. It's not always a Monday. It's actually sometimes people want to take a Wednesday off, because that allows them, one, to step away from their business, but also sometimes they need to get things done, which you can't get done during the workday. And actually that puts additional stress on people that, they're trying to get these things done between Monday to Friday and do their job, etc. So we've seen that the 4-day work week's been incredibly flexible, particularly for people with families, with kids. And I can assure you, during the pandemic over the past 2 years, it's become an absolute, lifesaver for a number of reasons that we would all understand. So, I think Mambu is incredibly proud that we were probably one of the first, we believe, globally to really adopt that as just a standard part of our business practice. And we continue to do that now. And we're very, very proud of that. And we use it, and as I said, we use it very much as an opportunity to attract talent.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like you say, not only the mental health component, the reduced stress component, but also the attractiveness of having that flexibility. So just to clarify, does it work that for 3 months every year, you can just choose 1 day a week that you take off, or does it have to be the same day for the whole company?
It's a flexi day, so people, they can choose. And the challenge we've had actually is actually encouraging people to actually take the day off, which I find really surprising. So, and again, interesting, a dynamic within your business, because you have lots of different roles and lots of different people with lots of different personalities and how they like to work and operate. Some people don't see the value of it, but then others, they absolutely do. But yeah, it's really driven by the employee. They can choose when they take the day off. The only thing we do get them to do is just make sure that not everybody in a single team takes the whole day off at the same time. And the next thing you know, business, grinds to a halt. So there's a little bit of trust and responsibility. But again, from a framework perspective, we empower our employees to make their own decisions.
Okay, that sounds really great. Thanks so much for explaining that in detail. I think people like me, maybe also Joseph, who've never worked in a 4-day work week, that's a concept you have to first wrap your head around for a second. Thank you so much. Joseph, I'd love to hear from you. Any kind of thoughts on this concept overall?
Sure. I think for Care Corner, because we serve the community, I don't think it's very likely we are able to go into a 4-day work week. But what is it that the employees really want? I think it's really about purpose of bringing care to the community. Secondly, is a mastery in the things that they do, whether it's in mental health, whether it's relating to youth or working with couples, right? And last but not least, I think part of this autonomy and empowerment they want comes this flexibility. Over at Care Corner, we don't offer a 4-day work week. We have 30 over locations and varied nature of operations, but we do have flexi load. Many new parents, new mothers, they are on flexi load, or if there's in a certain season of their life, which we see a bit more, our very seasoned veterans, they are taking flexi load to do caregiving duty for their elderly parents or siblings who have chronic illnesses. It could also be flexi place. With the pandemic, we have all learned, well, we can even give Zoom panel discussions at home, right? Thirdly, it's about flexi time, where the operations allow, we could have some flexibility and staggering working hours as long as service to the clients continue as per normal. Over the last 1 year, I think a few things that we did was that as a result of circuit breaker, we do continue our town hall digitally, and we intentionally make sure that there's a downtime, meaning after the town hall for half a day, okay, that's it. We will close for the day and everybody try to get research. We also have 3 polls that we've done over the last 1 year. And what we found was that 1/3 of the staff are really struggling. 1/3 feels that they enjoy the flexibility working from home. The other third feels that it seems to be quite business as usual. So beyond just a 4-day work week, I think it's really about the culture, the system, and the processes. And as this pandemic kind of drags on, right, I think it's really down to individuals. Do we have the ability to switch off the work mode, and also to ensure that we have downtime? I think these are critical factors that we can explore further as we continue the conversation.
I'd just like to add, I think that's exactly right. I think people and culture are one of the most important things here. You know, for us as an organization, we've doubled in size during the pandemic globally and also here in Asia Pacific. And we still have some employees who have never met another Mambuvian in person and have never been to an office because of just the situation we're all in and what's been happening globally. So I think to Joseph's point, there's lots of different drivers that are really driving this sort of, and I think people and the culture of the organization is critical. And, you know, flexi days and exactly what Joseph's talking about, value for us, the 4-day work week has been one of those things that really has allowed even the Mambuvians that haven't joined, you know, have only just joined the company during the pandemic, it's still been something for them, which is really important. So just fully echo what he's saying about, you know, your people and the culture of the organization are underpinning, you know, these initiatives that you can drive.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And did I catch that right? Do you call everybody at your company Mambuians?
Mambuvian. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. I guess it all comes down to flexibility, whether you want to set that up a 4-day work week and flexi days and hybrid working from home, working from the office, so many different versions of flexibility that employers are offering their employees at the moment. Thank you so much. I'd also like to hear from you, Myles. We've heard the concept. We'd like to hear a bit about how have these 4 or 5 years been going with that 4-day work week? What kind of takeaways do you have from this initiative?
Look, I mean, 50,000 foot view, it's been fantastic. And we fundamentally believe it's a key, as I said, a key pillar of our culture. But it's come with challenges as well. And I think the challenges have come with, as we've grown up as an organization, we've gone from being, as I said, you know, we were, you know, 80 people when we sort of started this initiative. Now we're now globally 750 people. And so you now start having the complexity of, particularly when you're talking to customers or you're actually doing your core business and you need to get a team of people together and you're in the middle of your 3 months of your 4-day work week, and then, well, we can't meet them on a Tuesday or we can't meet them on Friday because Joe's not working or Samantha's not working, etc. So we've had to start being a little bit more structured about when you're taking your 4-day work week, just to ensure that, as I said a little bit earlier, about having coverage in teams. So we have had to adapt it a little bit to make sure that we're not exposing ourselves to not having the skills available on the Wednesday or the Thursday to support both existing customers, but also, you know, people that we're talking to. But on the whole, you know, it's still something that we as a business are incredibly passionate about. So it's not the sort of thing that we've tried and failed. It's tried, it's been successful, but we constantly work on it and we constantly have to adapt to both the market conditions, but also as we're growing as an organization. And I think that's what's super important, and sort of along with what Joseph was saying, is that, you know, it may even evolve beyond just being a 4-day work week. It may move more towards flexi days and various things. So the learnings we've had is that it can't be a constant. It's got to be something that's continually evolving and changing as well.
If I may add on, I think I have 4 points here. As part of companies thinking about providing that flexibility, as a part of staff benefit or as part of the employee value proposition. I think one thing is really about digitalizations. I think Myles comes from the financial sector where there's very clear incentive to digitalize and ensure that there's efficiency. But sometimes for the social service sector, it's a bit different, right? It's all human touch, one-to-one. And I think one term we have coined that is not so familiar, but quite familiar to everybody, but it works pretty well in our sector, is really about what does it mean to be high-tech, but yet continue to have that high touch, right? So we had the privilege of embarking on a digitalization journey before COVID. So we have systems in place that could be, well, nothing unfamiliar to corporates, but for us, wow, it's a milestone. From pen and paper, we have moved on to a procurement system, financial systems. We are able to have our CRM in place and collaboration tools in place. And that comes in helpful when the pandemic came about. I think second part is really this trust and rapport between the managers and the staff and their team members. One key thing we learned is that as we embark on a more flexible work week, it's about having a different breed of managers who understand what truly matters, how to prioritize. It's not about having Joseph on site so that he can see him, but what are the outcomes? What really matters in our organization? What do we exist for? And then how do we then articulate it to our team members and ensure deliverables are still tracked, even while we aim to provide that flexibility to employees. So I thought that that really brings management and leadership to a different level throughout these past 2 years. And it's still an ongoing journey.
Thank you so much. That was a really, really great description. And I think almost everybody listening can probably relate to all the points being made, whether it's on digitalization or a different breed of managers, most definitely. Joseph, I was also wondering, since you are in your company is in quite a special situation where you need to be serving clients, it's on a topic of mental health, which is really important. You always want to be ready whenever your client would be in need, but at the same time, you need to be taking care of your employees' well-being. How exactly do you juggle both of those?
I think like what I've mentioned just now is really about the digitalization journey. Even right now, we are in the midst of having generous stakeholders funding us such that we could be available with online queries, same as the banking sector, where simple queries can be done online. Hopefully simple triaging can be done online with the promise that a human being is going to get back to you the next working day, so that when people faced with mental health challenges are desperate, right? 1:36 a.m. at night, they are searching for help, find that there's nobody to talk to, but at least they are empowered to make a schedule with us with a promise that somebody, a real human being, high touch, right? So a human being is going to come back to you the next day. I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is really that leadership has to be exercised. I mean, we have been working with many companies. We are overwhelmed in the last 3 weeks. We are having a contract with one of the largest uniform group in Singapore and one of the leading port company in Singapore to provide counseling, professional counseling services to their staff. And you know what? The inquiries have been flowing because these enlightened employers have chosen to pay for their employers to have such support. And I think that's why many people are now encouraged to come in for that support. So how are we doing? Not pretty well. The staff has, through a recent dialogue, mentioned that, wow, they are really overwhelmed. The statistic is that we have done 9 months worth of work in 6 months. So for the next 3 weeks, we are taking leadership to call a timeout. We are not going to take in new clients. We have arranged with our partners to take them in, except for those we have certain commercial obligations to continue that business continuity. If not, we are not taking in new clients for the next 3 weeks. Next week, we're having a town hall. After town hall, we're declaring a half-day downtime just for staff to really recharge. I think these are some of the things that we have to do along the way for our staff, and it has to be timely. And unfortunately, it doesn't help that all of us are online. We couldn't really connect. But at least the next best thing we could do is hear their feedback and make timely interventions, not just for our clients, but also for our staff.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think yeah, that spontaneous approach as well, you know, getting feedback and reacting to it in the moment can be really, really helpful to everybody. I have one more question for both of you. Let's get started with Myles. You mentioned earlier that, okay, especially in those 3 months, you're working a 4-day work week, yet still sometimes you need self-care time, self-care days. Why do you think that is still important despite the 4-day work week?
Yeah, it goes a little bit, I think, to what Joseph's point. Like, you know, we've moved into this world of digitalization and the world of always on. I mean, if you think about the way business used to be, you used to go to an office, you used to start at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and you'd work till 5 or 5:30, and then you basically would shut off. And most people didn't have mobile phones, and they didn't have access to data, and they weren't always online. So I think the challenge is that a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, can't switch off. And I have to say myself, I'm a bit of a culprit of this sometimes, that, you know, sometimes I should not be looking at my phone, but I do. I work for a European organization. So, you know, it's in the middle of their work day when I'm supposed to be winding down from my work day. And so I think that's a little bit of the challenge as well, is that we live in a highly connected world where the speed that people work and the speed that people operate now is so extremely faster. And particularly in, I guess, my industry in financial services and banking and technology, you know, consumers want everything now. That, you know, that's why a lot of banks are having to go through these challenges of digitization, because they're being driven by their customers want them to be able to do things so much faster. That it shouldn't take 4 weeks to get a loan anymore. It shouldn't take 2 weeks for a bit of paperwork to be posted out to you to be signed and sent back to the bank. So I think you've got all those drivers. And so I guess that sort of drives behavior with you as a service provider to that type of industry, that your people feel that they need to be on all the time. So as I said to you before, even though you have a policy where you've got, hey guys, you've got a 4-day work week, you just take that 5th day off. Sometimes people just can't help themselves. They just go, actually being disconnected to my job for 24 hours, you know, that's a bit of a foreign concept to them. So I think it actually, you know, it actually, for some people, that's actually a really hard decision to actually switch off, because they're just wired a particular way now, just due to our world and the way we operate and the world we live in right now. So I think that's where you actually have to make a conscious decision to actually have those self-care days, irrespective of whether your company's giving you the 4-day work week or they're giving you flexi days and all the rest of it. It's actually making that conscious decision to, back to my point before, get off the dance floor, go stand on the balcony for a while and just like have a look at the world and see what's going on. And, you know, and I think that's the challenges for everybody, is that just the way society is and how we all live these days, it's just so fast and it's so rapid that, and, you know, I challenge most people on this call today, those that, you know, to actually put your phone down for 24 hours, to actually not look at an email, not look at Slack, not look at WhatsApp, not look at Instagram, not look at, like, you know, and I can tell you 99.9% of them would really struggle. And I know I'm a culprit of it myself. So, you know, sorry, long answer to your question, Linda, but I think is one of the challenges. And so it's you having the mental toughness and the strength to actually put the shutters down. And that's where I think saying having a whole day is a challenge, but that's why sometimes I like to take even just an hour or 2 hours of doing that can actually give you that little mini reset, and that can actually really, really do your wonders.
Thanks so much for elaborating on that. I think we can all relate to that struggle, whether we work 5 days, 6 days, 4 days a week. Shutting off, whether it's in the evening or for the weekends, can be really, really hard. And especially, like you say, if there's a time difference and the notifications are still coming in, it's extra hard, definitely. Yes. How about you, Joseph? Any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think Myles has covered switching off. So I watched with much curiosity and interest. Recently in Singapore, there's a tripartite guidelines on how we can better safeguard the mental well-being of our employees, right? What does it mean to switch off? I mean, there's some suggestions like, well, if your boss is going to WhatsApp you in the middle of the night, what you can do is, if there's an agreed upon emoji, that you would give him a subtle reminder, you know, that, okay, I'm going to reply you, but probably perhaps not right now. So I think leaders and managers play a great part. The guidelines does give a certain legitimacy and a certain courage to staff to say, oh, okay, it's time for me to switch off. I need to take care of myself and my family as well, because I could be wearing other hats as a parent, as a spouse, or as a children. Right? Secondly, it's really about managers leading by examples and having that informal interactions. For example, I do tend to text certain colleagues at certain weird hours, and some have given me feedback, right? They say, well, I can't stop you from doing that, but perhaps send it to my email and not instant message me. So that could be one example where if there's openness in such discussion, then I think it helps, because it could be fine for some, whereas others would prefer not to because they feel compelled to reply instantaneously to you. And I think thirdly is about the overall culture. We are very thankful that in Care Corner there's a family-like culture. So we do want to take care of staff where when they see that somebody is overwhelmed, we do have clinical practices in place, peer supervision, and so on, just to check on their emotions, even as they deal with the intensity of emotions or from their clients. So we want to take care of them. And recently we have put in place more official and well-defined guidelines in terms of how many sessions they should be having a day. And to remind them, you have all right to take a break in between sessions or in the middle of the day when you need to. And that managers will really lead by example. I think these are some few key thoughts. Policy aside, yeah, they're only as good as papers they are written on. It's really about the managers and the leaders walking the talk.
Thank you so much. I think, yeah, that really brings it all together. We can have all the flexi days, all the, self-care days. If the rest of the company culture doesn't really align with that, it's really hard to really make that happen. Thank you so much. So in a second, we'll jump over to any questions from our audience. So anybody listening now, if you have any questions, you can pop those into the Q&A section. Before we go to those, though, I would like to hear from both of you. Maybe we'll start with Joseph this time. Do you have any last self-care tips or recommendations for our working adults listening today?
Maybe there are one thing that I would like to advocate for the employers, for the bosses, and one for the employees. For the employers, we have found that really go beyond the mental health talks. Put the money where your mouth is. Do where possible, provide that professional services for your staff. You never know who is calling in. Well, with our clients, with the companies that are enlightened enough to be paying for it, we have seen early 20s coming in for help. We have seen 50s to 60s struggling because of COVID, even though they may be the veterans in their company. So that investment is going to pay off because staff are going to feel valued that, wow, you are taking care of my well-being. I think that is very important, and I'm appealing to all the employers out there to invest in mental health support for staff. That's one. Two, for fellow human beings, that's something I'm trying to remind myself as well. In our pursuit of excellence, in our pursuit of performance, right? Sometimes in our words throughout the day, we are not so kind to our colleagues, not so kind to our own children, not so kind to our own spouse. Can we pause before we speak and be kind? You never know that one gracious word that you speak to a fellow colleague could be what keeps him going.
Thank you so much. So just to summarize, invest in mental health and kindness goes a long way, if I may rephrase those two. Thank you so much. How about you, Myles? Any self-care tips or recommendations?
First thing, I agree exactly with what Joseph said. I think that's super important. I think from a manager's perspective, I sometimes I need to stop myself, pause and think, and then you sometimes will say something completely differently to the way you were thinking you would say that. So I think absolutely your managers need to be really conscious of that and the influence that they have on their teams and on their people, and lead by example. I think that is super important. But to Joseph's point as well, it's managers. It's not just it's managers and employees. It's everybody that need to be aware of this and really see what's going on. I think the tip I would have for people, and sort of my role is be really conscious of that and team. I think Mambu has been very, very good around culture, about building that team and that family environment as well, and trust. I think that's the most important, knowing that people can be confident that they can come and, I'm an open door. They can come and talk to me whenever they want, no matter who they are in the organization. And we do encourage that. So I think that is super important. I do agree with Joseph as well about making sure companies invest in this. I mean, I do hate talking about it, but, one day this pandemic is going to be over. But the actual mental health long-term effects that are going to come out of it are going to be here to haunt us for a few years yet. And I would say to everybody to be really conscious of that. Think about that, the day Singapore and the rest of the world goes back to normal, there will continue to be lots of things going on. So don't lose sight of that. And there's a lot of focus on mental health at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic. It needs to continue. It's not something that needs to get put back on the shelf or put back on the drawer once the pandemic ceases to exist. So, that's the thing for me as a people leader. This should always be front of mind for you as a people leader. And I think, again, to the employees, trust your managers, talk to them openly. Quite often you'll find you'll be very surprised at the response and the reaction that you get, would be the other tip I would provide.
A great reminder and great recommendation as well. Thank you so much. Let's take a look at the questions. We got a couple of really great ones. I think this is an interesting one. Maybe we'll start this one off with you, Myles. It says, a company can implement 4 days work week and flexi days, but how does an organization adapt to this culture with a growing workload of expanding, growing, and meeting timelines, deadlines?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And I will say, Mambu's probably a little bit lucky that we implemented this very early on in our evolution as an organization. So we haven't had a lot of those challenges, because we sort of grew up having this as a fundamental part of who we are and who we are as a business. I think for established businesses, it actually has to be a conscious decision to implement a 4-day work week and understand what that means, to your point. So it's not just about, hey, guess what? You've got 12 flexi days. Oh, but by the way, we expect you to work the same way you used to work. We expect you to do this and we expect you to do that. So organizations really need to think that the complete end-to-end journey of what it means. But it does work. And our statistics and our data will show you that our people, because we only do it 3 months of the year, it's really interesting that we've got a really good perspective of how do we perform in the 3 months versus how do we perform in the other 9 months of the year. And the thing that's really interesting for us is actually we get a little bit better performance in the 3 months than we do out of the 9 months. So, which is a surprising statistic. So I would say to organizations that depending on what your structure is and how you want to do that, just make sure you look at the whole life cycle, but be prepared that you will need some change management philosophy, and you need to look at it, because it actually will fundamentally change who you are as an organization. But the exciting thing is every bit of data we have, and every bit of data I've seen from other organizations, is that you still get the workload done. You actually get it done just in a slightly different way. And quite often you get better outcomes from it.
Thank you so much. I think that's a really good insight as well. That statistic is very interesting to see. I was on the edge of my seat wanting to hear what exactly you've learned from that. Thank you so much. I think we have another great question. I would think this would be great for Joseph. How do we bring up mental health and well-being conversations to our employers?
In fact, I would say now is the best time. What one of my team did was, even though all of them are counselors, we decided that, hey, we haven't really been meeting physically. Let's do a 30 minutes check-in, right? And let's put the agenda as, you can say anything except about work. And I thought that was really helpful as we learn about personal challenges, how we are doing throughout the day, and how we've been doing the last 1 year. And I thought that would be one useful way to raise awareness on mental health issues, because pressures, challenges, anxieties will all come out in such session. That could be one. Two, it the conversation need not start off with mental health, right? With our managers or management, if they are not so open at the moment, it could be talking about how has the pandemic changed the nature of our operations and our business processes, and how can I, as an employee, do a much better job, but yet at the same time, that I'm not just an employee, I do have a family to take care of. Could we have some kind of discussion on how we could maybe balance all this without compromising business outcomes? I thought that could be another way of looking at it. And thirdly, we could raise an awareness with our bosses and HR. Hey, there are certain government funding scheme out there that look at workplace health initiative from the Health Promotion Board and from the Ministry of Manpower. Will we be willing to consider some of those schemes which would then benefit employees, but yet it's more cost effective for the employers? So I thought these are a few ways in which we can raise conversations around it.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for that great answer, Joseph. We have lots of more questions. I'm just sorting through them, but I think here's an interesting one for you, Myles. I think a lot of us are still wrapping our head around this concept of 4-day work week. And somebody is asking, can employees stack up the 4 days? Well, I guess they mean the 1 day off and use it for annual leave. And I would like to add on to that question, if so, or if not, why? What is your philosophy behind allowing that or not allowing that?
Yeah, so the short answer is no, we don't allow them to do that. Reason being is we're actually very generous on an annual leave basis anyway. We actually give our employees 25 days a year. So we give them 5 weeks annual leave, and that's a global initiative. So we try to weigh that up by the idea is that we don't want people to think of their 4-day work week as just another way to stack up annual leave. The idea being that it truly is a day to give you that flexibility to actually go and have a care day or go and give you the flexibility. It's not just another way to rack up extra 12 days for you to then go have a much longer, bigger holiday later in the year. So we do get asked that, particularly when employees come on, but then we sort of justify, as I said, like we're very generous on annual leave anyway. We really want this to be something which is about, don't think of it as another way. It's like actually it's encouraging you to actually use these days for all the reasons that we've talked about on the call. So that's probably the only real bit we're a bit firm on about it, is you can't sort of rack them up over the 3 months and then say, oh, I'm going to take a 12-day holiday now. So that's certainly, so it's sort of a use it or lose it type thing as well.
Completely understand. I see also how that would not really lead to the outcome that you guys are looking for with that implementation. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. I have one more question. Maybe this would be great for Joseph. It's more an opinion piece saying maybe there needs to be a government and company awareness to resolve 6 days, 5.5 days work week, shift work, standby work arrangement before we can solve 4-day work week. We'd love to hear your insight on this. I guess it's more of an opinion, but I'd love to hear your opinion on this opinion.
I guess there's only so much that government policies can do, right? And I think like what I've mentioned just now, there are new tripartite guidelines on how do we take better care of the mental well-being of employees. I think that is one step, because those guidelines or legislations provide a certain level of legitimacy for companies to follow. That is one. But 2 is not really going to go away just with implementation of legislation. It's really, we come back to the whole company culture, the company values, and really down to your individual managers, right? And even if the company doesn't have any policy, it doesn't stop managers from doing something more flexible, having a flexible arrangement for staff, right? For example, previously I was in another organization. I have a staff who is single. The parent is going through, one of the parents is going through chemotherapy and having some serious illness. So the arrangement we did was that, well, you would have to clear most of your annual leave, and I'm prepared to let you then work flexibility from home for the next, say, 3 months to tie through this period. And after communicating with the individual and with the individual's permission, I shared that with the team as well. So there's some structure, like Myles say, okay, so with regards to certain team meetings, we are only going to have it on a certain day if it involves this individual, because these 3 months he couldn't be around. And I'm saying that this flexibility will be extended to any team members who need it, as long as we juggle the business outcome. So it doesn't stop a manager from having some flexibility to do some of these arrangements, even though the company may not have certain policy written. So that could be certain grounds up initiative. And I guess, well, it's a evolving way to do it. Some companies are more ready than others. And I'm hoping that with a tripartite focus on mental health, with the government's focus on mental health, and I'm actually looking forward to the government allowing, right, individuals to tap more on MediSave, the CPF, for mental health treatment, for outpatient or inpatient treatment. I think that will really be a game changer. So there's work to be done on the government's end, there's work to be done on the employer's end, and there's work to be done on our end. At the end of the day, if you dread going to work every day, then you seriously really need to think about, is that where you want to be in the long term?
Thank you so much. That was a great answer, and I think a little call to action for any manager who feels like this flexibility is something I want to implement, but I don't have the means right now in my company. So that was a great answer. Thank you so much. We have one more question. We have time for one more question. I'd like to kind of use it as a bit of a summary for everything we've talked about, go a bit more general about mental health. I'd love to hear from both of you. How can we have conversations, or how have the conversations about mental health changed in the past years? How can we circumvent, or how can we work through this stigma, especially in Asia, surrounding mental health when we talk in the setting of our company, with our employers, with our employees? Yeah, go for it. Whoever feels like answering this first.
I'll go first, and Joseph will give something way smarter than I will at the end of this. But I think from my perspective, I think people are a lot more open to talking about it, Linda, and I think that's the most important thing. I think, rightly or wrongly, it was put away in the cupboard and it wasn't really talked about, and certainly wasn't a priority or addressed from a business perspective. I think there were little attempts at doing it. I think really the past year, 2 years in particular, it's actually become an important topic, and it's actually made employers wake up and really focus on it and see that it is a priority, that they do need to think about really bringing it to the fore and the well-being of the employees. So I think that is certainly something that has definitely occurred from our opinion, in my opinion, with that. And I think the stigma has started to go as well. I mean, I know, and to the point, particularly in a number of Asian countries, but I would say right across the whole Asia Pacific region, I'm seeing it right across. I'm seeing it. I've got employees in 11 different countries, and I am really seeing that it is something now that's been addressed at different paces and different speeds, but I think it really is at the forefront. So I think the stigma is starting to go away from it, because what's happening now is it's now becoming more obvious that it's actually, and I hope this is not too controversial, but there's a lot of people that are having mental health issues right up and down the spectrum. It's not just juniors, it's just not old people. To Joseph's point, there's 20-year-olds calling in, there's 14-year-olds, there's 50-year-olds, there's 60-year-olds, there's shift workers, there's part-time workers, there's senior executives. And now what's happening is it's creating a bit of a groundswell, I believe, that it's actually okay to talk about it. And it's actually okay for workplaces to encourage that people engage and talk about it. So, I think from my perspective, like I said earlier, I think we haven't seen the worst yet of the impact. I think people are still living and breathing the pandemic right now. I still believe there's going to be a bit of still an uptick once life goes back to normal. But I'm excited and really happy that it's been addressed. It's been put to the fore, and you're actually seeing a lot of organizations and governments and regulatory bodies focus on it. And I think that's the real. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm glad it's been addressed. And I think that's probably one of the upsides that's come out of this, that we're having a panel like this, we're talking about it openly, and we're getting expertise and people that we get to share our views to a much wider audience.
Most definitely. Thank you so, so much for this overall summary, ending on a really great note. But before we do, Joseph, we'd love to hear from you as well.
I think with regards to stigma, is it going to go away completely? Perhaps I'm not so optimistic. I'm really glad that in Singapore, the public service has taken a stand where you don't really have to declare that for some of the jobs. For most jobs, except for those in the critical security sectors, where there's a business requirement for an individual or a potential job hirer, right? A hiree to declare his mental health status or previous mental health illness. So I think that is a step in the right direction. We also see politicians and business leaders in Singapore and across the world sharing about their own mental health challenges. That is a good start, and hopefully we will see more and more of that to normalize it. I think thirdly, cost remains a barrier. So where can we go from here? I think if the government could help allow the CPF to be used for, the MediSave to be used for offsetting some of the inpatient and outpatient costs, that would be a great help. And of course, employers can play a big part. Well, it will not be so practical and useful for employees to hear about bosses and companies talking about mental health, but there's no practical action, right? So the most practical action is really to provide that kind of support and to pay for it. That is one. And last but not least, where can we go from here? I mean, in my sector, we probably don't have that P&L pressure. We don't have to earn the last dollar out there in the world. We take a more, I suppose at times we take a more humanistic approach. In certain season, certain capacity of an individual is impacted by mental health. Could we work around it to still enable the individual to still do some form of work, to still earn a livelihood, but yet understanding that certain business outcome cannot be compromised? Could we have more flexibility in that area to cater to individuals? That will really depend on each manager and each company to state their stand. And I think it's very hard to have a policy to remove that stigma. But I think at the end of the day, it's about being kind as a human being. What can we do within the authority that we have, what we're empowered? Yeah. Being kind, stigma.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for this this last comment, this overall summary. And yeah, on that note, we are coming to the end of our session. Thank you so much to both of you for joining this conversation. Again, I think, like you both mentioned, these are the kinds of conversations that'll help us reduce the stigma going forwards, and you know, having big names like the two of you talk about this and having people listen and say, wait, they're also needing days or moments to take off and to like not look at your phone. That's a really, really great conversation to be having. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Great to be here. Enjoy the rest of the festival, guys.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Anna.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Linda, and thanks, Myles and Joseph, for a very interesting panel discussion. We'll now have a short break until 2:45 p.m. So it's about 30 minutes. We'll reconnect again at 2:45 p.m. to discuss mental wellness in the workplace. We have HR leaders from companies like Foodpanda, Omnicom Media Group, and Schroders. It's going to be a very exciting and engaging session, so please come back for that.